My name is Ashley, and at 32, I've spent the last decade building my career as a manager at Preston and Associates. While my younger sisters, Sarah and Emma, were busy starting their families, I was climbing the corporate ladder. Don't get me wrong, I love my job, but sometimes I wonder if I missed out on something along the way. No husband, no kids, just me and my corner office with a view of the city. It was a regular Tuesday morning when my phone rang. Sarah's name flashed across the screen, and I answered while sorting through a stack of reports on my desk. "Hey, Ash," Sarah's voice chirped through the speaker. At 26, my youngest sister had always been the bubbly one. "Got a minute?" "Sure, what's up?" I shuffled some papers aside, half listening as I reviewed quarterly numbers. "So, you know Mom's turning 60 in 2 months, right?" She paused for effect. "Well, we're planning something special, and we need everyone to chip in." That got my attention. "Okay, how much are we talking about?" When Sarah named the figure, I nearly choked on my coffee. It was more than I'd spent on my last vacation, which, come to think of it, was 3 years ago. "I know it's a lot," Sarah rushed to add, "but it's for Mom, you know." No, it's fine," I said, already pulling up my banking app. "I'll transfer it right now." "Great. Oh, and one more thing, make sure you take a week off work for the celebration. Don't plan anything else for that time, okay?" The next few weeks flew by in a blur of meetings and deadlines. I'd occasionally wonder what my sisters were planning with all that money, but whenever I asked, they'd brush me off with vague responses. Eventually, work took over, and Mom's birthday slipped to the back of my mind. Then came the Saturday dinner. We all gathered at our parents' house, Mom and Dad, my sisters, Aunt Susan and her kids, my cousins Michael and Rachel. The familiar chaos of family dinner surrounded us, Dad telling his same old jokes, Mom fussing over everyone's plates, the usual stuff. That's when Sarah dropped her bomb. "So," she said, pushing her peas around her plate with calculated casualness, "we finally got everything arranged for Mom's birthday. We're all going to spend a week at Mountain Pine Resort." The table erupted in excited chatter. Mom was beaming, Dad was already talking about hitting the slopes, and my sisters were discussing which ski runs they wanted to try. "Why didn't anyone tell me earlier?" I asked, feeling a bit left out. "I don't even have a ski suit, and there's barely any time to get one now." The table got too quiet. Mom cleared her throat, and I felt my stomach drop before she even opened her mouth. "Actually, honey," she said with that tone she used when she was about to ask for a favor she knew I couldn't refuse, "we were hoping you could do us all a huge favor and watch the kids while we're there." I stared at my family, gathered around the dinner table, waiting for someone to laugh, to say it was all a joke, but the silence stretched on, broken only by the soft clink of silverware against plates. "You want me to watch the kids?" I finally managed to say. "All 5 of them?" My mind started counting them off automatically: Emma's toddler Jason, Sarah's baby girl Lucy, cousin Michael's twins Tom and Anna, and Rachel's son Pete. 5 kids under the age of 7. "Well, you're so good with them," Mom said, as if that explained everything. "They love their Aunt Ashley." I looked around the table again, still hoping to see a hint of humor in someone's eyes. There was none, just expectant faces waiting for my usual yes. "But that's not fair," I heard myself say, my voice sounding strange to my own ears. "I want to celebrate with everyone too. It's Mom's birthday." Emma, my 28-year-old sister, put down her fork with a sigh. "Come on, Ashley, you'll be bored there anyway. It's going to be noisy and crowded." "Bored?" I repeated. "How would you know if I'd be bored?" "Well," she continued, exchanging glances with Sarah, "you're great with the kids. They adore you, and let's be honest, it's not like you need a break from family life." I felt my chest tighten. "What's that supposed to mean?" Sarah jumped in, her voice carrying that condescending tone she'd perfected over the years. "She just means that you don't have children or a husband to get away from. The rest of us, we need this break. You understand, right?" The green beans on my plate blurred as I blinked back tears. I wouldn't give them the satisfaction of seeing me cry. Instead, I quietly pushed back my chair and stood up. "Ashley," Mom's voice held a note of concern, but not enough to actually stop me. Without a word, I grabbed my purse from the counter and headed for the door. Nobody moved to stop me. Nobody called out. The only sound that followed me was Mom's voice drifting from the dining room. "Don't worry, she'll be a little offended at first, but she'll come around. She always does." As I walked to my car, their voices faded behind me, already moving on to discussing ski slopes and winter gear. The evening air was crisp against my face, helping to clear my head. 10 years of putting everyone else first, of being the responsible one, the reliable one, and this is what I got in return. The worst part wasn't even the babysitting request, it was the casualness with which they'd assumed I'd agree, the way they'd planned this whole thing without me, using my money, my time, my vacation days, without even asking, as if I was just a resource to be used, not a member of the family to be included. I spent half the night pacing around my apartment, replaying every family dinner, every holiday, every moment when I dropped everything to help someone else. The memories came flooding back, each one taking on a new, darker meaning in light of tonight's events. There I was at 16, making dinner while Mom helped Emma with her homework, me at 18, turning down a spring break trip with friends to watch Sarah while our parents took a weekend getaway, at 21, working 2 jobs during college to help pay for Emma's prom dress. The images kept coming, year after year, sacrifice after sacrifice. "Ashley, can you watch Jason for a few hours?" Emma's voice echoed in my head. "I really need a break." "Ashley, would you mind taking the twins for the weekend?" Michael's familiar request played back like a broken record. "Rachel's overwhelmed with Pete, and you're so good with kids." I'd always said yes. Always. Even when I had important meetings the next day, even when I was exhausted from my own work week. I'd taken pride in being the reliable one, the responsible sister, the perfect daughter. I collapsed onto my couch, the leather cool against my skin. The photo albums on my coffee table caught my eye: family vacations where I was always the one behind the camera, holiday gatherings where I was always in the kitchen while everyone else laughed in the living room. When was the last time someone had asked me what I wanted? "It's not like you need a break from family life." Sarah's words kept echoing in my head, as if my life, my career, my choices were somehow less valid because I wasn't married with children, as if all my sacrifices meant nothing because they didn't fit their definition of what mattered. Sleep didn't come easily that night. I tossed and turned, remembering how I'd worked through college on a scholarship, determined not to burden my parents financially, how I'd started my career immediately after graduation, helping to put both my sisters through school, all those late nights at the office, climbing the corporate ladder, sending chunks of my salary home to help with family expenses. By morning, I'd made up my mind. I wasn't a confrontational person, never had been. There had to be a way to resolve this peacefully, to make them understand without causing a family rift. So I did what I'd always done when there was a problem: I tried to fix it. I waited until a reasonable hour on Sunday morning before picking up my phone. Mom answered on the 3rd ring. "Hi, Mom," I said, keeping my voice steady. "I've been thinking about the resort trip. Actually, I have a solution. I'll pay for a professional babysitter for all 5 kids. That way, everyone can enjoy the celebration together." The silence on the other end of the line stretched for a moment too long. "That won't work, Ashley," Mom finally said, her voice tight. "We can't trust some stranger with the children. They're used to you." "Mom, I want to be part of the celebration too," I tried to explain. "I want to be there for your birthday. I could find a really good babysitter, someone with excellent references. You know, you're not exactly a social butterfly," she cut me off, her voice sharp. "You'd probably be uncomfortable with all the noise and activity anyway. The children will keep you busy, and you enjoy spending time with them. It's perfect for everyone." The click of the call ending echoed in my ear before I could respond. I sat there, phone still pressed to my ear, as my mother's words sank in. She hadn't even bothered to say goodbye. I was still staring at my phone, processing my mother's abrupt hang-up, when it buzzed again. Sarah's name flashed across the screen. "How dare you," she hissed before I could even say hello. "Mom just told me about your little suggestion about hiring a babysitter. Are you trying to ruin everything?" I sat up straighter, my sister's hostile tone catching me off guard. "Ruin everything?" "I'm trying to find a solution that works for everyone." "We already have a solution," Sarah's voice rose. "Everything's planned, Ashley, everything. And now you're being completely selfish, trying to change all our arrangements at the last minute." The accusation hit me like a slap. "I'm being selfish?" "Yes, you are. We've been planning this for weeks, everyone's excited, the resort is booked, the activities are scheduled, and now you want to throw a wrench in everything because you can't just do this one thing for the family. My hand started shaking. One thing? Are you serious? You know what? If you ruin this trip for everyone, if you spoil Mom's birthday celebration, don't bother talking to me again. I mean it, Ashley. The line went dead. I sat there, stunned by my baby sister's threat, when my phone buzzed with incoming messages, this time from Emma. Family needs to stick together, her first text read. We all help each other out. Another message popped up, remember when I watered your flowers last year while you were at that conference? And another, you're good with the kids, they love you. Why can't you just forget about being resentful and think about what's best for the family? My fingers flew across the keyboard as I replied, a real family doesn't take advantage of each other. A real family respects each other's wishes and includes everyone in their plans. A real family doesn't manipulate and guilt-trip each other. I watched the 3 dots appear and disappear several times, but no response came. That's when it hit me, the way they'd asked for money without explaining what it was for, the careful way they told me to take time off work without mentioning the resort, the casual way they'd announced their plans at dinner as if everything was already set in stone. They'd planned this all along. While I was working late nights, while I was babysitting their kids, while I was being the perfect daughter and sister, they were secretly arranging this trip. They'd used my money, arranged my schedule, and planned to dump 5 children on me without so much as a conversation. And now that I wasn't playing along with their script, they were trying every manipulation tactic they could think of: guilt, threats, emotional blackmail to force me back into the box they'd created for me. Something strange happens when you finally see through the fog of manipulation. Suddenly, everything becomes crystal clear. I felt lighter than I had in years. The guilt that had been weighing me down was replaced by something else, determination. I opened my laptop and started searching. Within an hour, I had booked a beachfront hotel in Florida, nothing too fancy, but it had a balcony overlooking the ocean and was within walking distance to everything I might need. I even splurged on a first-class plane ticket. After all, I had plenty of money since I wouldn't be skiing. The next few days at work were surprisingly peaceful. My family had stopped calling and texting. They probably thought I was home preparing for a week of childcare, maybe buying extra snacks and planning activities. The thought made me smile as I packed my beach clothes and new swimsuit. Taking a tropical vacation in the middle of winter? My colleague Janet asked when she saw me checking the Florida weather forecast. Sometimes you need to do something unexpected, I replied, surprised by how good it felt to say those words out loud. The morning of my flight, I took one last look around my apartment. I'd cleaned everything meticulously, force of habit, I suppose. The empty fridge, the properly locked windows, everything in perfect order, just like always. Except this time, I wouldn't be here to answer any desperate phone calls for babysitting. As the plane took off, I switched off my phone and tucked it into my bag. No social media, no email, no family drama, just me, the beach, and a whole week of freedom. The Florida air hit me like a warm embrace when I stepped out of the airport. Palm trees swayed in the breeze, and I could smell the salt from the ocean even from here. My hotel room was even better than the pictures. The balcony offered a perfect view of the endless blue horizon, and I could hear the waves crashing against the shore. That first afternoon, I walked barefoot on the beach, letting the warm sand squeeze between my toes. When was the last time I'd done something like this? When was the last time I'd done anything just for me? I swam in the hotel pool, read a book without interruption, and had dinner at a quiet beachside restaurant where no one needed me to cut their food or clean up their spills. I watched the sunset from my balcony, sipping a glass of wine without a single thought about bedtime routines or morning schedules. My last morning in Florida, I savored my final moments of peace. I knew I'd have to turn my phone back on eventually, face whatever chaos I'd left behind. But I hadn't expected quite what I found. When my phone finally powered up, it started buzzing non-stop: messages, voicemails, calls, hundreds of them. The timestamp showed they started exactly a week ago, early in the morning. My hands trembled slightly as I began scrolling through them. The first messages were from Sarah: "Where are you? We're outside your house." Then Emma: "Ashley, open the door, the kids are getting restless." Michael: "Hey, we brought Tom and Anna like planned. Are you home?" Rachel: "Ashley, what's going on? Pete's asking for his aunt." As I read through the messages, I could picture the scene perfectly: my sisters and cousins standing outside my empty house with 5 confused children, their suitcases packed for the resort, their carefully laid plans crumbling around them. The tone of the messages changed quickly from confusion to panic. "Ashley, this isn't funny. Where are you? Pick up your phone. What are we supposed to do with the kids? You can't just disappear like this." Then came the anger. Sarah's messages turned nasty. "You selfish witch, how could you do this to us? Emma wasn't much better. I can't believe you're this immature. Mom's birthday is ruined because of you." My Aunt Susan's messages made me wince. I'd never seen her use that kind of language before. "You ungrateful little UVE ruined everything. These children were counting on you." Mom's messages started later in the day. "I'm so disappointed in you, Ashley. I never thought you'd be this selfish after everything we've done for you." Dad, who rarely texted, had sent just one message: "Your mother is crying. I hope you're happy with yourself." The voicemails were worse. I could hear the anger, the disappointment, the accusations in their voices. Messages from extended family members I hadn't talked to in months suddenly appeared, all of them condemning my behavior. "You've always been so reliable. How could you do this to your own family? Those poor children, UVE ruined everything." I sat there in my peaceful hotel room, reading message after message, learning exactly what my family thought of me when I finally stopped being their convenient solution. The words they used, the names they called me, the assumptions they made about my character — it was like meeting a whole new family, one that had been hiding behind fake smiles and casual requests for favors. Without responding to any of them, I packed my bags and headed to the airport. It was time to go home, but I wasn't the same Ashley who had left a week ago. That Ashley might have apologized, might have felt guilty, might have tried to make it up to everyone, but that Ashley was gone.
I had just finished unpacking my beach clothes when I heard the aggressive pounding on my front door. Before I could even reach it, I heard a key turning in the lock, the emergency key I'd given my mother years ago, just in case. They burst in like an angry storm, Mom leading the charge, Emma and Sarah flanking her sides, all of them red-faced and wild-eyed. The peaceful feeling I'd cultivated in Florida evaporated instantly. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" Sarah screamed, stepping forward. "You ruined everything. Everything." I stood my ground, watching them unleash their fury in my living room, the same living room where I'd babysat their children countless times, where I'd cancelled my own plans to accommodate their emergencies, where I'd always been the reliable one. Mike and John refused to stay with the kids. Emma spat out, referring to their husbands. They both suddenly had important business to take care of, so Sarah had to stay home with all 5 children while we went to the resort. "She missed Mom's birthday because of you. The whole trip was ruined," Mom added, her voice rising. "Nobody could enjoy themselves. All we did was talk about how you betrayed us, how you let everyone down. Your father couldn't even ski properly, he was so upset." They continued their tirade, talking over each other, each one trying to outdo the others in expressing their disappointment and anger. The more they talked, the more absurd it all seemed, until something inside me broke, but not in the way they expected. I started laughing. The sound of laughter cut through their accusations like a knife. They stopped mid-sentence, staring at me as if I'd lost my mind. "What's so funny?" Mom demanded, her face flushing darker. What could possibly be funny about this situation? I wiped tears of laughter from my eyes. "Don't you see how ridiculous this is? Do you really not understand how absurd you all sound right now?" "Absurd?" Emma sputtered. "What's absurd about? You secretly planned this entire trip," I interrupted, my laughter fading but my voice steady. "You decided, without asking me, that I would watch your children. You took my money, told me to take time off work, and then just assumed I would fall in line with your plans. And now that everything fell apart because of your assumptions, you're here calling me the villain. But you've always helped before," Mom said, her voice smaller now, confused. "You've never said no, and that's exactly the problem," I cut in. "Because I always helped, you started taking advantage of me. You stopped seeing me as a daughter or a sister and started seeing me as free childcare. You stopped considering my feelings, my plans, my life." "That's not true," Sarah protested, but her voice lacked conviction. "Really?" I raised an eyebrow. "Then why didn't you include me in the planning? Why didn't you ask me if I wanted to go to the resort? Why did you just assume I'd be happy to stay behind with 5 children while everyone else celebrated?" I watched their faces, hoping to see some recognition, some understanding of how they treated me. Instead, I saw their expressions harden. "You're being selfish," Mom said, her voice cold. "You've ruined my birthday, you've hurt your sisters, you've disappointed the children. This isn't how I raised you." I felt the last thread of hope snap. "No, Mom, you're the ones being selfish. This whole situation is your fault, not mine." Mom drew herself up to her full height, her face like stone. "If that's how you feel, then perhaps I don't have a daughter named Ashley anymore. If that's what you want, Mom," I said quietly, "then so be it." It's been 6 weeks since that final confrontation in my living room. 6 weeks of silence, broken only by the occasional notification when one of my family members makes another thinly veiled post on social media. "Some people only think about themselves," Mom wrote last week, followed by a dozen sympathetic comments from relatives and family friends who only know her version of the story. "Family should always come first," Sarah posted yesterday with a photo of her daughter. "So blessed to have people in my life who understand what that really means." Emma's latest was a long paragraph about toxic people who destroy family bonds with their selfishness. She didn't tag me, of course, but everyone knew who she was talking about. A few months ago, these posts would have devastated me. I would have spent hours crafting responses in my head, losing sleep over their words, wondering if maybe they were right. But now I just scroll past them, sometimes with a small smile at how predictable they've become. I've changed my routine. Instead of spending my weekends on standby for emergency babysitting calls, I've joined a local book club. The first meeting felt strange sitting in a coffee shop on a Saturday morning, knowing my phone wouldn't ring with a desperate plea from one of my sisters. Last week, I booked another vacation, a trip to Europe in the spring. I didn't have to check with anyone's schedule or make sure it wouldn't conflict with someone else's needs. I just saw a good deal and took it. Sometimes, in quiet moments, I think about my nieces and nephews. I miss them, but not the way they were used as weapons against me. I hope that someday, when they're older, they'll understand. Maybe they'll even recognize the same patterns in their own lives and choose differently. I still have the emergency key Mom used that last day. I should probably mail it back, but something stops me each time I think about it. Maybe part of me hopes that one day they'll understand, that they'll see how their actions and expectations were unfair, how they took advantage of my love for them, that they'll realize family doesn't mean sacrificing yourself to meet everyone else's needs. But I'm not waiting for that day anymore. I'm not putting my life on hold, hoping for their approval or understanding. For the first time in my life, I'm putting myself first, and it feels right. Yesterday, I deleted the family group chat from my phone. I didn't make an announcement about it or try to explain myself. I just quietly removed myself from one more obligation, one more source of stress. Some might call this selfishness. My family certainly does, but I've learned that there's a difference between being selfish and having self-respect. Sometimes the healthiest thing you can do is step away from people who can't see your worth beyond what you can do for them.